So when Star Trek The Next Generation was shown in syndication in Canada before Hockey Night in Canada on Saturday nights, this episode gave itself away because before it even came on, CBC would rarely do this. They had a parental advisory. Some scenes would be detrimental to children. Viewer discretion is advised. We're saying to yourself, what could happen in Star Trek that would freak out the CBC because the CBC used their own font to put a disclaimer. It has to be the bug filled episode of conspiracy. We still don't know. There's never been explained in the last 30 plus years of Star Trek where in the fuck the bugs came from. It's still a mystery. Now, this is the 25th and penultimate episode of the first season of SNG, and it was originally aired on May 9th, 1988. Now, ironically, this was in the midst of the Stanley Cup playoffs. Now, shown again May 8th in the States, but earlier in Canada. The premise was conceived by the show's creator Gene Roddenberry in a single sentence overview titled The Assassins, being expanded into a 30-page story by Robert Sabaroff. From this, the teleplay was produced by Tracy Torme and the episode directed by Cliff Bold. Set in the 24th century, the series followed the adventures of the Starfleet crew of the Federation starship Enterprise D. Following a meeting with a fellow captain, the strange behavior of high-ranking officers leads Jean-Luc Picard, Patrick Stewart, and the crew of the Enterprise to uncover a conspiracy of senior Starfleet officers possessed by parasitic aliens who are prepared to invade the United Federation of Planets. Now, again, Torme's teleplay is quite fast, and numerous makeup effects were created by makeup supervisor Michael Westmore, including an exploding head using raw meat. I hear you, Cronenberg. There were concerns by producers some of the effects were too graphic, but after viewing by a staff member's son, they decided to broadcast it uncut. The episode was subsequently been included in some of the best episode lists of the series and won one of three Primetime Emmy Awards for the Next Generation's first season. Controversial when originally broadcast, the more graphic elements were cut from broadcast in UK and of course required a warning before airing in Canada because you're not supposed to show blowing up heads before a hockey game where people are beating each other up over a puck. Yeah. Captain Picard, this one, receives a highly confidential message from Captain Walker Keel of the USS Horatio, who were long friends with Crusher and Picard. Keel refuses to discuss his concerns and insists on a face-to-face meeting on what seems to be an abandoned planet. At the meeting, Keel reports strange orders from Starfleet headquarters and what he implies are suspicious deaths of Starfleet officers and expresses concern of a conspiracy. Now, of the three people that show up, the other two besides Keel is the actor who plays a lot of what they call shock horror movies of the 80s, plus a very beautiful, she looked like a black hybrid of Spock and Lieutenant Uhura, and a lot of people speculated that might be Spock and Uhura's child. I'm not joking, that was conspiracy at the time, the real conspiracy. Now, Picard eventually has Lieutenant Commander Data review all orders issued by Starfleet Command in the past 6 months. Data finds several strange orders from the senior levels of Starfleet, and Picard orders the Enterprise to Earth. As it approaches Earth, a transmission is received from a trio of Starfleet admirals, Savar, Aaron, and Quinn. The admirals are surprised by the Enterprise presence, but invite Captain Picard and Commander Riker to dinner. And Keel's ship blows up due to failure. Now, after witnessing the Admiral's bizarre behavior and discussion of a superior life form, Dr. Crusher discovers that a bug-like parasite has wrapped his tendrils around the stem of Quinn's brain and it's controlling him. Maybe it was a cousin to the Wrath of Khan bugs. It's not really stated. Now, at dinner, it's revealed that the parasites are seeking to take over Starfleet using humanoids as hosts. Riker and Picard subdue the affected men, causing parasites to leave the host and flee. It was quite an action sequence because Crusher puts like kind of a little plastic thing on the back of Riker's head, pretending he's been infected and are about to eat a whole bunch of which looks like maggots. And Riker picks it up, pretending he's going to eat. And he starts shooting people, and one of the Vulcans tries to give him the famous Vulcan neck pinch, but it doesn't go ahead. Now, one of the parasites gets away and scurries under a closed door, where Picard and Riker find Quincy sitting in Remick eating the parasite. Now, Remick showed up in the previous episodes to investigate some kind of conspiracy that involved Quinn as well. Now, Remick eventually begins transmitting a signal. Picard and Riker fire upon Remick, destroying his body but freeing a giant parasite. And the famous line, "We seek peaceful coexistence," a throwback to, the Khrushchev era. Now, when Picard and Riker fire upon Remick, destroying his body, again, the giant parasite comes out. The two continue to fire until it's destroyed. At the same time, Picard and Riker are given kind of disgusted looks more to the crowd than to Remick. Dr. Crusher eventually reports that the other parasites have shriveled up and died, as they're unable to survive without the mother creature that had been inhabiting Remick. Data theorizes that Remick's signal was a homing beacon to more creatures like himself, and of course, nothing happened. Now, which second season was the Borg. Roddenberry originated the idea for the episode in a single sentence proposal entitled The Assassins. Robert Sabaroff expanded his idea to 30 pages, but his version was seen as too expensive. Torme was then given the job of rewriting it, but some producers thought the new version was too dark until Roddenberry saw it and endorsed the new version. In one of the original versions, it was faction within Starfleet who were conspirators rather than alien parasites, but Roddenberry did not like the showing Starfleet itself in such a dark manner. But the famous line from that Uhura Spock, maybe sexual meld, "You're the brains and you're the brawn, we're the brains," that sort of thing. Now, Wired suggested that the premise was based on the Iran-Contra affair. The episode's cliffhanger ending was meant to lead to the introduction of the Borg, initially conceptualized as an insectoid species in the second season, but proved too expensive. Now, the plot element was foreshadowed in the following episode, The Neutral Zone, because a whole bunch of Romulan and Federation outposts were wiped off the Earth. Now, once the Borg were reimagined as a cybernetic race in cubes, this element was dropped, and the story element, the parasite signal, was never resolved. Now, the director of the episode, Cliff Bowl, was a school friend of makeup supervisor Westmore. The scene with Remick at the end of the episode was added in post-production, as it was originally scripted to have Riker and Picard come face-to-face with a full-size mother creature. The part where the parasite enters Remick's throat reportedly took many takes because the bulging effect was made by Westmore blowing at the bladder on their false neck, and Bowl kept trying to make Westmore hyperventilate from the exertion. The parasites were created by Makeup and Effects Laboratories, from design by Rick Sternbach. A mold of Paul Newman's face actually was filled with raw meat and then blown up to create the effects used when Picard and Riker fired on Remick, but Rick Berman and Peter Lorsten were concerned it was too graphic. Dan Curry invited his 6-year-old son to watch the episode in order to test how children react to it. The boy reportedly liked it so much that he suggested the creation of a Remick action figure whose head would blow up while pressing a button. This resulted in Berman deciding to air the episode uncut, with the full sequence included. Now, several pages and effects seen in the episodes were reproduced from the Star Trek movies, including the shots of Earth and Space Dock 1 and the painting used of Starfleet Command. Now, the species have shown up in print. They never reappeared. Again, they were the Deep Space Nine relaunch novels where they are revealed to be mutated Trill symbiotes. They also reappeared in several episodes of the game Star Trek Online. The parasites, known as bluegills, are bioengineered by Solani on behalf of the Yaconians. They are not capable of infecting a joined Trill. Now, the website Woman at Warp compared this episode with the Buffy the Vampire Slayer episode Bad Eggs. In both, insect-like creatures invade human hosts in service to a mother parasite. Not only do each show's creatures look alike, 6 legs, pincers up front, tail in the back, they even attach to the victims in similar fashion, burrowing into her necks. Now, when it was aired in the broadcast syndication within the States during the week commencing May 1388, it had a Nielsen rating of 9.4, reflecting the percentage of all households watching the episode during its time slot. This was a decrease of 0.3 ratings points from the previous episode, The Very Tepid Will Always Have Paris, and it was less than the 10.2 rating received by the following episode of Neutral Zone. Due to the nature of its content, a warning was aired before Conspiracy. Again, it was screened in Canada, and it was banned by the BBC in the United Kingdom, and later aired on BBC Two in Boulder Rise Forum. The episode was nominated for Coming of Age for Best Makeup at the Primetime Emmys, winning the award, one of 3 Emmys won by the show that year. Now, several reviewers rewatched Star Trek The Next Generation after the end of the series. One reviewer called the episode a nasty episode that doesn't quite cohere with the level of nasty it could, but that the series doesn't do horror action all that often, and it serves as a good change of pace, if nothing else. Now, they're very heavy with the music in this episode, and to me, it worked and didn't work. Now, some people didn't like it. Most people gave it a B. Personally, I found it very, very over the top, and it was very like 1980s Cronenberg, like Videodrome, and kind of a creeping terror. Now, Conspiracy was actually included as an honorable mention in a list of the best episodes of Star Trek's Next Generation by the San Jose Mercury News. It was also included in a list of best and worst episodes by Scott Thill at Wired magazine as one of the best, describing the reaction to the episode as polarizing and suggesting that Conspiracy might be worthy of becoming a plot in a future film by J.J. Abrams. Now, Wired actually ranked Conspiracy as one of the best of the Next Generation, the 2012 review of the series, and noted the creative plot involving threat to Federation. Now, the explosion of Remnick is considered by some to be one of the greatest scenes in Star Trek history. Hollywood Reporter called it the 99th best episode of all Star Trek episodes up to that time. Now, Den of Geek, as years have gone on, better reviews. It was called the Top 25. The Gamer, Top 25 Creepiest Episodes of all Star Trek. And the Hollywood Reporter listed the episodes of the 25 best episodes of Next Generation, noting that it was the favorite episode of the series property manager, Alan Sims. Now, it was eventually released on VHS cassette in the U.S. on May 26, 1993. It was on the DVD box set for Star Trek Season 1, Next Generation, and released on Blu-ray, so 12 years ago. Now, my review of this episode, the first half or 15 minutes, definitely 10 out of 10. It kind of goes off the rails, and when Quinn comes on and said, basically, you misunderstanding me is about racist. Like, it seems pretty obvious, and watching Quinn doing the kung fu or whatever you want to call it, karate moves, you got against Riker, against Worf. Why in the hell the bugs would think beating up the Klingons would give me his jollies? I thought they were like a kind of an unemotional type thing. There's a lot of shit going on. Like I said, you throw a horror movie plot against the wall, only certain things stick. Because most major horror movies have 7 or 8 murders until the villain is found at the end, or we call the 1980s horror style. But here, it should have been a 2-hour episode. Like, there's some episodes of Star Trek were stretched into 2 hours, but this should have been 2 episodes for sure. And I like the villains of the bugs better than the Borg, and I tell you why. Because the Borg was so fucking obvious. They show up and they start attacking, and we're going to assimilate you as a fucking one note. But with the bugs, each bug that takes over a certain group of people, be it a Vulcan or like the pompous black girl saying, "Are you that good?" "Yes, I am." Each bug that invades the host could improve them. Like Quinn becomes like a 29-year-old man again, and he's in his 70s. But for me, it was be more interesting. But the thing is, Star Trek first season, you tried different things. The Klingons, it was Worf killing somebody was later on, but Worf became like horny and more angry as the season went on. At the first, he was kind of milquetoast. Like, give me. But you can imagine if Tasha Yar was still living and the bugs would have took over her. That'd be a better way if she wanted to leave the show to have her killed off in that episode. But the bugs are 10 out of 10. I like myself a good alien bug, and there's some pictures of this. But it's almost like if you took E.T. and threw acid on E.T. and survived, that's what a bug would look like. It's pretty amazing. But like I said, definitely deserved that Emmy. And it's kind of a throwback because Creature of the Black Lagoon, a little bit of like a Doctor Who influence, the different aliens. But I hope you're taking it right away. How in the hell did the bugs get into human beings in the first place? Did somebody just show up and the bug went up the head and it happened to, did he have telepathic power? Like did he know who the smartest human would have flight? Did he put mental things across the universe to make them come to their planet and pick them up? It would be more like William Shatner giving the information about the bugs would make a lot more sense, because a lot of plots of Star Trek, the classic series, didn't make any sense until William Shatner, like the cloud that it's going to come and suck all your blood. Like there were crazy plots, but according to Kirk, it's more than normal. We've seen all these crazy things throughout the world. So again, you have a chance, watch it. But I would like to see what was on the cutting room floor to see what scenes were cut out. To me, this seems to be like a 90-minute movie. And he didn't do any movies within the series of Star Trek's Next Generation. It was two-parters, and he should have shown every once in a while a movie. But for me, if you haven't seen the episode before, you got to see it because it's just, if you like that kind of stuff, it's up your alley. So Conspiracy for me, 4.5 stars out of 5. And knowing the NHL playoffs in '89 were connected with this, '89 playoffs were quite, '88 playoffs, were quite interesting because that was Gretzky's fourth Stanley Cup, and a lot of people were watching. So, but imagine sitting down in 1988. You're a young kid, maybe 10, 11 years old. You got Star Trek, and you get a Hockey Night in Canada. Boys, oh boys, you're a lucky little boy, aren't you? We don't have that very often, because back in the day, ladies and gentlemen, prime time in Canada would start on the weekends later, but in daily on CTV and CBC, sometimes 6:30, 7 o'clock. So you had 5 hours of prime time. And I don't know why CBC decided to show this on Saturday nights. Maybe because Star Trek was always shown on the weekend syndication. Space 1999 was a late afternoon on Saturdays. So the ideal situation for us, ladies and gentlemen, pro wrestling, Atlantic Grand Prix Wrestling, Space 1999, then the news, then Star Trek, then Hockey Night in Canada. It's a 2-pizza night. So, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for listening. If you have any requests, let me know. And don't forget, I've seen a lot of Star Trek, and I didn't like Picard too much. Patrick Stewart, I've met him. He's a nice guy. But, he's even weak in his episodes because Riker and Worf are not given much to do and just hit it out of the park, because Worf would have kicked. Can imagine Worf against a bunch of bugs, because the Klingons, you just want a good fight. You know what I mean? It would make a lot more sense. Anyway, a lot of things were done good, but a lot of things could have been expanded. Thus the 2-hour episodes. Thanks for listening, and don't forget, as we say in New Brunswick, and if you got a bug in your head, just keep your stick in the ice. Bye.